Yes, hi there. This is Victor Pross speaking. I thought that perhaps it would be interesting to share some experiences with you. Those experiences being meeting George H. Smith and Stefan Molyneux, uh, both of whom are heavyweight thinkers in my opinion. Basically, just to give you a little background as to who I am. Again, my name is Victor Pross. I am an artist or a caricaturist. I guess I'm probably wouldn't be designated as a garden variety caricaturist. I do pretty detailed, elaborate sociological and politically oriented work, and you can check out my work at victorpross.com or on YouTube and Facebook. You'll see samples of my work. And yeah, in regards to being an artist, I guess I've done a couple of things that would be considered pretty high profile. I painted director Ron Howard's portrait as a gift for the famous Hollywood director. It was for his 50th birthday party, and so his portrait hangs on his wall, I suppose, somewhere. Ron Howard. And I've had other commissions where I've been commissioned by the William Morris Agency, and I've done Hollywood actors such as Fred Ward, and I've had numerous articles written about me. I have a book published called Icons and Idols, Pop Goes the Culture. I do pretty extreme caricaturing. I do pretty weird stuff in some people's views. And I also have a documentary film coming out that's based on my book, Icons and Idols, Pop Goes the Culture. It's goes by the same name, the documentary, and it's kind of an exploration into my creative life and with a little touch of my personal life too, I guess, in there. So anyway, getting back to wanting to share my stories of meeting George H. Smith and Stefan Molyneux. I have a history in philosophy, in that I have taken some courses at York University, just kind of like dabbled here and there in intellectual history with Professor John Redpath, who had studied the philosophy of Ayn Rand and who is an objectivist professor. So anyway, I fell into a whole circle of different types of people: artistic people, musicians, painters, poets, anarchists, intellectuals, communists, minarchists, a whole socialists, communists. I've been in a whole stew of various type of intellectual groups and pursuits and attending lectures. So I've been in that whole community, mixing it up with the field of ideas. And I probably had read Ayn Rand when I was first 19, and I went on to other intellectual works, reading Karl Marx, Immanuel Kant, Friedrich Nietzsche, Hobbes, and etc. So I have that whole interest going. And at one point, I guess, I've been doing this ever since I was a teenager, but I think it was around the time when I was maybe 35 years old that I had met George H. Smith. I had attended a lecture. I've attended numerous lectures in Toronto, and I was invited to go camping by some friends. And the whole purpose of this camping trip was to just chill out, drink beer, smoke a few, sit around a campfire, and at the same time too, there was lectures going on. It was like a combination: have fun and attend lectures. And I had found out that George H. Smith was going to be giving one of the lectures. Now, I had read George H. Smith when I was a teenager, along with Rand. I'd read his book, Atheism: The Case Against God, and then I went on to read Why Atheism and Atheism, Ayn Rand, and Other Heresies. So he's a heavyweight intellectual, very learned man. So I was very excited at the prospect of meeting George H. Smith. I had known him ever since I was a teenager, and here I was in my mid-30s, and I was going to meet the man. So yeah, so I jumped on board. I was there. I'm not much of a camper or outdoorsy person, but I made the exception. I'm the city's liquor, I guess. So there I was, and I remember it very vividly. I attended the lecture, and later on, when everybody was relaxing, I was sitting around a campfire with a whole mess of other people, and I was sitting across from George H. Smith. You have to picture this. It's night. There's a fire there. The sparks are crackling up, and people are drinking their beers and eating marshmallows. And I got into a heavy rap with George H. Smith, and I think I held my own on that one. But he certainly treated me with great respect. And I just remember, like, I was kind of tipsy, but I was not so tipsy that I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But just listening to this man just blew my mind. I mean, I had read him all the while, and here I am talking to him, and it's like, lo and behold, he looked like a kind of like a hippie kind of dude, just a kickback, down-to-earth hippie kind of dude, kind of eccentric. But once he started talking, it's kind of like, whoa, yeah, this is George H. Smith. And so that was quite the experience, and I have fond memories of that. And George H. Smith later on went to try to get me work doing some caricature work for famous libertarians, to capture the image of famous libertarians for a T-shirts line or something like that. It fell through, but I remember he said something very nice, and it turned out to be a quote in my book that I used, something that he had said about my art. So later on, maybe around the same time when I was 35, 36, I had met Stefan Molyneux through a mutual friend. That was just simply attending a lecture in Toronto, within the city. And I remember that afterwards, after the lecture was over, myself, Stefan, and this mutual friend, we maybe like late at night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or whatever, we went for a coffee and donuts. And once again, Stefan, like George H. Smith, proved himself to be a very stellar intellect. I had a very pleasant conversation that lasted into the wee hours of the morning. I had met Stefan maybe once or two or three times, and I think probably on the third time that I had met him, I had my portfolio with me, and he saw some samples of my work. Now, unlike George H. Smith, Stefan recoiled at my art. I guess it's pretty bizarre. It's pretty out there. You can judge for yourself. And I do remember that I was doing pretty disturbing and weird stuff. I think probably one of the illustrations that he saw that I had was that of a homeless person in a box who was just a severed head. There was this severed head sitting in a box out on some urban street in some alley, and somebody's passing by, and the headless person, or excuse me, the person with the severed head, as asking for spare change. So yeah, pretty weird stuff. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but hey, that's where I was at the time. And so I remember Stefan had very negative reactions to my art. Myself and George H. Smith and Stefan, we all have a common link, though, and that being objectivism. We had studied Ayn Rand's philosophy. We designate ourselves as objectivists. We shed that off, not completely, but only in regards to some aspects of her ethics, and in regards to politics. We made a complete departure from being a minarchist to anarchist, so we all trekked down that same line. So I guess in that regards, you can pretty much consider us brethren. And where we disagree, it's nothing of a fundamental nature. It's completely derivative matters, aesthetics, what is art, what is something could be considered to be objectively good art, and things like that. They're all, I differ from Stefan on a lot of issues. I don't know where George H. Smith stands on the question of aesthetics, but no matter. Anyway, I do want to thank you for listening to me, and I'll wish you a good evening.